There's something that stings more than a brutal loss. Realizing the talent is in the building, the road is right there, but the entire season is still waiting on answers nobody can keep delaying. The Chargers are stepping into that kind of moment with a first-round running back feeling real pressure to become a true difference maker. A potentially explosive veteran still sitting on the market. Justin Herbert finally getting national attention with Mike McDaniel, and an offensive line battle that could either protect the whole plan or make everything wobble. Subscribe right now because today isn't just another news day. This feels like a crossroads in Los Angeles, the type of moment that can set the tone for the entire year. The Omarion Hampton conversation is one of those topics that splits the fan base right down the middle between wanting to defend the player and having to admit the pressure is real. Because nobody forgot the cost. Pick 22 in the draft. First-round running back. A massive investment at a position where the modern NFL is usually cold, cheap, and almost suspicious. So when the Chargers made that move, they were not just saying we like the talent. They were saying, we believe this guy can change how this offense functions. That's why his absence from NFL Spin Zone's ranking of the top 11 running backs in the AFC hits in a strange way. You cannot automatically treat it like disrespect. After a rookie season limited to 9 games, 545 yards, and 4 touchdowns, leaving him off the list is understandable. The real issue is what it reveals. Hampton still has not become, to the rest of the league, the player Los Angeles believed it was drafting. But I'm not coming into this conversation acting like the kid failed on his own. Absolutely not. Injuries break rhythm. They break confidence. They break reads. They break reps. And for a young running back, especially one who has to feel space, hit the crease at the right moment, and contribute in the passing game, losing continuity is almost like trying to learn a song when half the notes are missing. The talent he had at North Carolina didn't vanish. The burst is still there. The pass-catching ability is still there. The question is whether his body lets that talent show up across a full season. Then Mike McDaniel enters the picture, and that changes the whole feel of this conversation. Because this offense might be exactly the setting Hampton needed. McDaniel loves outside zone, movement, angles, and making defenses run sideways before cutting them open inside. That fits a back with acceleration and big play juice. If Hampton stays healthy, he doesn't need to turn into Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, or James Cook overnight. But he does need to move into that group of backs that makes defenses respect the backfield before the ball is even snapped. The uncomfortable part is that players like Tony Pollard and Travion Henderson being ranked above him right now is not outrageous. Pollard cleared 1,000 yards with the Titans. Henderson, even while playing plenty as RB2 in New England, showed enough to be viewed with more certainty. So the Chargers' argument can't be made by shouting about it. It has to be made on the field. And honestly, I like that, I really do. Sometimes the best fuel for a young player is that exact kind of discomfort. Not embarrassment, not cheap drama, competitive discomfort. Hampton has a full season in front of him to turn a questioned investment into a central weapon in this offense. If he makes that leap, everything changes for Herbert, for McDaniel, and for the offensive identity in Los Angeles. But if the injuries come back or the production stays ordinary, then the conversation gets uncomfortable fast. A first-round pick at running back wasn't made to be a background piece. It was made to matter on Sundays. And while Hampton is carrying that internal pressure, another conversation is starting to mess with the fan base's imagination. Deebo Samuel is still available. I've got to handle this with some balance without draining the excitement, because Deebo today isn't that 2021 force who looked like he was tearing up the entire offensive rulebook. But pretending he is just another name at this point? No, not even close. Last season in Washington, he played 16 games, caught 72 passes, put up 727 yards, and scored 5 touchdowns, even with Jaden Daniels missing big stretches of the year. That matters. When the starting quarterback disappears, when the season disappoints, when the offense loses stability, it is easy for a veteran receiver's numbers to collapse and become the excuse everybody uses to say he is finished. That didn't happen. Deebo still produced. He was still useful. He still showed that if you get him the ball in space, he can still punish a defense. That's where the Chargers enter this story with pretty obvious football logic. Mike McDaniel knows how to create space. That is the whole point. You can debate leadership, you can debate results, you can debate anything you want, but designing an offense with motion, displacement, clean windows, and players catching the ball with leverage, he can do that. And Deebo, even without the same ridiculous peak explosiveness, is still a player who understands contact, angles, yards after the catch, and controlled chaos. Picture that in Los Angeles. Herbert not having to force the perfect throw into tight windows on every single snap, the offense finding yards after the catch, Deebo being used as a second or third piece, not as the weekly savior. That is where this becomes interesting. The mistake would be signing Deebo and expecting him to carry the offense on his back. The smart version would be using him as a multiplier. Motion, screens, short routes, occasional backfield looks, specific packages. A physical presence that changes how a defender lines up. And the Chargers might need exactly that. David Njoku helps in the middle of the field, no question. Ladd McConkey still has the talent to be a major piece, even after taking a step back from his debut. Quentin Johnston, to me, is more comfortable when he isn't forced to be the answer every week. So Deebo wouldn't have to steal anybody's identity. He could take weight off other people. The real questions are money, role, and timing. If his market heats up after the Juwan Jennings deal, Los Angeles has to know where its line is. But from a football fit standpoint, I completely understand why his name keeps coming up. Deebo with McDaniel doesn't sound like nostalgia. It sounds like a package of problems for defenses to solve. And for an offense trying to protect Herbert with design, rhythm, and easy yards, that kind of weapon can be worth a lot more than it looks on a cold spreadsheet. Then comes the part that almost feels strange for anybody who follows the Chargers closely. Suddenly, the rest of the country is talking about Justin Herbert like it just discovered something this fan base has been yelling for years. Herbert might be taking a break overseas. He might have become a topic because he's away from voluntary workouts. Some people might be trying to turn one off-season detail into a full storyline. But the real center of the story isn't travel, photos, schedule noise, or side chatter. The center is that the NFL is looking at Herbert with Mike McDaniel and thinking, hold on, this could explode. I get the reaction. For a long time, the national conversation around Herbert always seemed to come with a catch. Ridiculous talent, but not enough wins. Special arm, but inconsistent offense. Strong numbers, but an unfinished story. Now the context has changed. When Cameron Wolfe goes on NFL Network and says McDaniel is going to work with Herbert and take him to another level, and also mentions people inside the building talking about speeding up the footwork, timing, and rhythm of the operation, that is not empty praise. That is a hint about the kind of fix Los Angeles is trying to build. Over the last 2 years, Herbert's time to throw has been slower than much of the league. That didn't happen because he forgot how to play quarterback. Stop being lazy with that take. He was in a more methodical, heavier offense tied to a run-first identity under Greg Roman. The weapons didn't always scare people enough. The line was hurt, and last year he lost Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, both elite tackles. When the environment breaks down, even a special quarterback can start looking like he's trying to put out fires with his arm on every snap. The idea now is different. The ball has to come out with better rhythm. The feet have to match the route. The read needs quick answers. McDaniel can use pre-snap motion, lighter formations, horizontal space, and play design to give Herbert what every great quarterback deserves. Clean options before the chaos arrives. And when a player with that arm gets easier answers, the defense loses comfort. If it squeezes short, he attacks deep. If it respects the cannon, he wins on timing. The rebuilt interior of the line ties directly into all of that. Tyler Biadasz arrives to organize the center spot. Jake Slaughter, even coming from college as a center and carrying some risk in the transition, has the athletic profile that fits this system. This isn't just about changing names. It is about trying to change the mental and physical speed of the offense. So I want to hear from the fan base in the comments. Do you think Herbert's leap comes more from McDaniel's mind or from the line finally giving him structure? Because to me, if those two things meet, that old story of the Chargers as some distant promise disappears. The conversation becomes true contender. And when the national media starts saying that out loud, Los Angeles doesn't need to beg for validation. It needs to realize the window is calling. And this whole conversation about Herbert, rhythm, and a cleaner offense eventually runs into a name that might not have Deebo's shine or Hampton's weight, but could still shape the season: Jake Slaughter. It's easy to talk about system, motion, outside zone, timing, and the ball coming out fast. But at the end of the day, somebody has to block the man lined up across from him. And if the left side of the interior line turns into a leak, the whole idea starts to shake. The Chargers picked Slaughter in the second round of the 2026 draft with a very clear intention: put a smart, technical, mobile athlete into an immediate competition for a starting job. The fit with McDaniel makes sense on paper. He comes from Florida, played center, showed quality and protection, and according to Pro Football Focus, allowed only 4 pressures and 1 sack across 421 pass blocking snaps in his final college season. That's not some tiny detail. That shows control, patience, good hands, and an understanding of leverage. But this is the part that makes the fan base a little uneasy. He didn't play a single college snap at guard, not one. And changing positions on the interior line isn't just sliding over and acting like nothing changed. The angle changes, the contact changes, the timing of help changes, the relationship with the tackle changes. At center, you see the game one way. At guard, a lot of things arrive faster, heavier, and tighter. For a rookie, that is a serious adjustment. The Chargers' bet gets even bigger when you look at what they didn't do. They let Zion Johnson go to the Browns. They didn't seem to push hard for the top guards in free agency. Names like Isaac Seumalo and David Edwards passed by without much movement from Los Angeles. They also didn't trade out of the first round when Olavavega-Ioane was selected, something that maybe could have opened another draft path toward a name like Chase Bisontis. So the team didn't stumble into this by accident. It chose to live with this competition. The main alternative is Trevor Penning, and that is where the fan base gets a little tight in the chest. Penning came over from the Saints in the middle of last season, has first-round experience, has size, and has NFL years on him. Jim Harbaugh and the staff must see something there to work with, but between the Saints and Chargers, he logged 358 snaps at left guard and 47 at left tackle, allowing 26 pressures and 5 sacks. After what Los Angeles suffered through on the interior, starting another year depending on that version would be playing around with a recent wound. That's why OTAs, starting May 26th, matter so much for Slaughter. Not because anybody becomes the locked-in starter in May, but the first signs of adaptation show up there. Posture, processing speed, drill fit, communication, comfort in space. If he looks lost, the concern grows. If he looks natural, the staff gets oxygen. And I will defend the aggressiveness of the bet as far as it can be defended. Harbaugh likes real competition. McDaniel needs athletes who can move. Slaughter has the tools to be more than a temporary patch. But tools don't block by themselves. He has to take that job, practice by practice, all the way into August. If he does, the Chargers turn a massive question into a young solution. If he doesn't, the pressure lands exactly where nobody wanted it, back on Herbert. When you pull this whole script together, one idea keeps coming through. The Chargers are not living off pretty promises anymore. Hampton has to turn investment into impact. Deebo Samuel, if the price and role makes sense, could become a smart weapon for an offense that wants space. Herbert with McDaniel is already making the national media change its tone, and Jake Slaughter carries a competition that could protect or expose all of it. This is a season of big details, the kind that decide whether Los Angeles only looks exciting in May or becomes genuinely scary in January. If you want to follow every move in this build, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us. Bolt up.